TaxAct knows filing your small business taxes can be a nightmare, like the kind where you're being chased by a giant W-2 form and you're running and running, but you can never reach the submit button. Or something like that. So, TaxAct offers Expert Assist with live tax experts to make filing taxes less scary. Now, you can just have pleasant dreams about being chased by other giant, non-threatening paperwork. TaxAct. Let's get them over with.
Today on CityCast Philly, we continue our conversation about what might be one of the most contentious issues in the city: bike lanes. Last year, Mayor Parker signed a law that forbids stopping a car or a truck in a bike lane, even momentarily. In yesterday's show, I spoke with an advocate from the Bicycle Coalition who said the law will keep cyclists safer because parked cars are clogging the bike lanes. In today's show, we hear from the president of the Center City Residents Association, Leo Levinson. He wants to change the law to accommodate residents of Spruce and Pine Streets. It's Tuesday, February 25th. I'm Trenae Nuri, and here's what Philly's talking about. How long have you lived in Center City?
I've lived in Center City about 10 years, and both my work and home are in Center City West, in fact.
Okay, so what do you get to do as the head of the Center City Residents Association?
Oh, man. One really puts in a lot of time, but it's fun because it's my neighborhood. As we say, we're neighbors for a better neighborhood. And so what I do is I meet with people, I meet with our group. We're the community group that oversees zoning before it goes to the city zoning commission. We own the garden at the Schuylkill. We do tree tending. We interact with the police and the streets as well, and on and on and on. So we represent the residents from Center City West, from Broad Street to the river, and from South Street to the South JFK. We're the biggest RCO registered community organization in Philadelphia.
Leo, the center of this debate over the new bike lane law, which bans stopping for even a minute in a bike lane, is Pine and Spruce Streets in Center City. These are the most heavily used bike lanes in the city, running east to west, almost from river to river. What's the history of bike lanes in Center City? At one point, car lanes were reduced to accommodate these lanes, right?
Yes, and in fact, it's one of the points of our position. And if I may, just to go back, we didn't just come up with this position out of the blue. I developed a task force within our board to study the issue. We had people from the neighborhood come and talk about how they use the streets in our neighborhood. We presented a plan and we voted on the plan. But one of the issues, regardless of our plan, is the compromise that was made in 2009. In 2009, there were 3 lanes on Spruce and Pine Street. The streets are very narrow streets. And the city wanted to have 1 lane parking, 1 lane drive-through, and 1 lane bike path. And the neighborhood was very, very much against it. And the city said, how about if we permit up to 20-minute stopping in the bike lane? And if that's okay with you, then we will put the bike lanes in. And the community, the residents, ultimately agreed. So why did they want stopping? Because many of these homes on Spruce and Pine don't have a back entrance, don't have a back door, don't have a garage. And so the only way that they can get little kids into their home, or an infirm senior citizen, or just an infirm person, or others, is to stop for a few minutes with their cars, with their attended cars, unfortunately in the bike lane, and go in. And in an issue like this, we really need to compromise and work with people. And one of the points in our solution is that people will go from 20 minutes to 10 minutes, only cars, and it must be an attended car. But at that point, it looks out for the residents, and I believe it's a terrific compromise. But back to your original question, the 2009 compromise was important because if it wasn't for that compromise, no doubt there would be no bike lanes on Spruce and Pine Street.
So, Leo, your current proposed compromise is to have the law, which was just enacted in December 2024, to be changed. Like you mentioned, part of your plan is to allow residents to park in the bike lanes for up to 10 minutes, down from what had been allowed, which was 20 minutes. But in a few weeks, the PPA will start ticketing people that park even for just a moment on Pine and Spruce. And that ticket is $125. What do you need to do to get the city to agree to this new compromise? Isn't this already a law?
Unfortunately, there was a law that was passed very quickly that prohibited all stopping. Just for those who don't know, if you have a no parking sign, it means you are still allowed to stop up to 20 minutes in the city. Whereas if you have no stopping, then there is purely no stopping, no parking whatsoever. So what it did was it converted the no parking area into no stopping, and it came through City Council with very little notice and quickly passed through. So we're trying to bring that back a little bit. And so maybe instead of 20 minutes, let's make it 10 minutes. But there's some other things that we can do that I think can be very helpful, not only to the residents, but also to the biking community as well.
Leo, I order a lot of stuff from Amazon. There's a lot of Amazon trucks riding around Philly, dropping off packages, FedEx, UPS, the Postal Service. How do they come into play with this new compromise?
Well, that's a great question. And in fact, they have in some ways nothing to do with this solution, because the Center City Residents Association was instrumental in carving out loading zones, taking away some parking spaces at the start and at the end of every block. So it used to be that cars could park there. Now there's a stopping zone where vehicles can park for 20 minutes. So an Amazon, UPS can pull in there, can park, can do their business on the block, and return to their vehicle without being in any bike lane. So that's already in place and seems to be working somewhat successfully. By the way, those stopping lanes convert to overnight parking, so the residents of those blocks can park in those spaces overnight, but then they have to be out of there by about 8 a.m.
More on this bike lane compromise after the break.
Lowe's knows that free is just better. That's why MyLowe's Rewards is free to join. As a member, you earn points towards MyLowe's money on eligible purchases, get exclusive free gifts, and earn free shipping at Silver Key status, all on top of weekly member-only deals. Don't wait. Join MyLowe's Rewards for free today and start saving more. Lowe's, we help, you save. Loyalty program subject to terms and conditions. Details at lowes.com/terms. Subject to change.
Hey, Fidelity. What's it cost to invest with the Fidelity app?
Start with as little as $1 with no account fees or trade commissions on U.S. stocks and ETFs.
That's music to my ears.
I can only talk.
Investing involves risk, including risk of loss. Zero account fees apply to retail brokerage accounts only. Sell order assessment fee not included. A limited number of ETFs are subject to a transaction-based service fee of $100. See full list at fidelity.com/commissions. Fidelity Brokerage Services, LLC, member NYSE, SIPC.
Part of what spurred this new law were two recent deaths of cyclists in bike lanes in Center City. That's what got political support behind efforts by the Bicycle Coalition of Greater Philadelphia to ban stopping in bike lanes. I spoke with a representative, Nicole Brunet, the policy director of the coalition, and she talked about this idea of advocating for protected bike lanes. What are some of the ideas from your association that could be added to protect cyclists as they ride down Pine and Spruce Streets?
Yes, and I just want to refer back to that 2009 agreement in that it only related to Spruce and Pine. The law that was passed in City Council relates to all bike lanes in the entire city, so that throughout the city, it's now illegal to park or stop in a bike lane. What you're referring to with the Bike Coalition and other members and organizations of the bicycle community was heightened in awareness due to two very unfortunate, very tragic deaths that occurred in the bike lanes and on Spruce Street in the last couple of years. And it energized the community to advocate for concrete barriers. They could be either kind of small barriers that would be something that they call turtles, or actual poured concrete barriers that differentiate between the bike lane and the other lane, so that in theory, vehicles, except for maybe fire vehicles or very large trucks, couldn't get over those blocks. The problem that we see, or what happened, is unfortunately putting concrete barriers and flower pots and other things like that would not have prevented the deaths of these two people. Whereas we believe that the solution that we offer has the potential to prevent future accidents like this. And the reason is because the accidents did not happen mid-block, they happened in the intersection. And so our plan believes that speed is what the problem is, that it's speeding vehicles that often hinder the bike community, and especially in people's speed to turn a corner or to go fast. And unfortunately, one of the people who passed away was hit by a drunk driver going 52 miles an hour on Spruce Street. And so our solution is a speed bump somewhat midway in the block, also to raise one of the crosswalks along these streets. So as a car goes up the street, they're encountering a bump, they're encountering a raised crosswalk, and so that should close them down somewhat. The second point is shortening the stopping time for residents to be able to do whatever they need to do to unload and move on, from 20 minutes to 10 minutes. And the third thing is to come up with these white delineator posts that would be installed every 30 feet and even closer as you got to the corners to really delineate the bike path. But it would also enable emergency vehicles, roofers, other contractors, moving vehicles to access the residents there without having to navigate a concrete barrier or maybe not be able to.
What other concerns do you have about the no stopping law?
I'm disappointed that it was passed so quickly, and in a lot of ways, the community organizations, and not just the Center City Residents Association, but also the other two organizations on the east side of Broad Street, we really didn't get as much of a chance as we think we should have to communicate our case and the case of our residents. By the way, many of our residents are cyclists, and in fact, some of the key people who are on our task force are avid cyclists. They're on their bicycles every single day, and they too support our solution over other solutions.
as the law is written now, do you feel like this was a victory for cyclists?
Well, it's interesting. I don't know if victory is the word I would use. I think it was a politically expedient reaction to do something to appease the community. And I don't think their community is particularly satisfied with this as a quote victory, because to them, a victory would be erecting these concrete barriers and really protecting. So they got far less than they were looking for, and we got less than we're looking for. So I think both sides are somewhat unhappy with the way this transpired.
You did say there are a lot of cyclists that live in the neighborhood. What kind of conversations are you having with them?
You know, it's interesting. I had a meeting with the, I'm not sure what it stands for, but it's the people in the city department who deal with the streets and the signage and the organization. It's called Otis.
I think Otis is the Office of Transportation and Infrastructure Systems.
There we go. But when I was having a conversation with them, I was telling them that we really need a solution that works for the cyclists, for the pedestrians, and for the motorists. And they said, you know, we don't use that terminology in Otis. We say we want to be beneficial to people who ride bikes, people who walk, and people who drive cars. And when you put the people in front of these things, all of a sudden you realize that we need a solution that's going to work for the entire community, and everybody needs a say in it, and everybody, you know, may or may not be completely satisfied, but it's got to work as a whole. It cannot just be beneficial to one side of the equation.
Leo, was there any other part of this conversation that you wanted to add that we may have missed?
No, I think we've covered it pretty well. We'd love to have another opportunity with the city government, and we have continued to have meetings with them. So don't get me wrong. The mayor's office is responsive. We've spoken with them. We've spoken with our city councilman, and we continue to make a case for this. And I'm just hoping that they will come to the realization that maybe this was a little too hasty and that we need to have a little more community input before we make the law. And frankly, all they need to do is bring this back from a 20-minute stand to a 10-minute stand. And, you know, there are obstructions in Center City. I mean, cyclists go around cars, they go around potholes, they go around bumps.
And that's dangerous.
And everything, you know, riding in the city is dangerous. Walking in the city is dangerous. Driving in the city is dangerous. And so there are dangers in every aspect. And on the one hand, one wants to minimize dangers. But on the other hand, the real dangers are these poor people who were killed in the intersections, and trying to find a solution to maybe prevent these kinds of deaths in the future. And our feeling is that the Center City Residents Association solution is something to truly be considered to accommodate this.
Do you feel like everyone's being respectful in this debate, conversation, however you want to call it?
You know, to a degree, we are. And I have to say, we have had members of Philly Bike Action attend our board meetings, and we've invited them, and they've been very respectful, and we've permitted them to give their talk and influence us. And I've been invited to Philly Bike Action, and I've had this dialogue. So, I mean, there, you know, in every community, there are nutty people, but I think generally as the communities go, the goal is to prevent these deaths from happening in the intersection and to make cycling safer. And we feel that speed kills and that we need to help the speed, and they feel that they need a solid demarcation that protects the bike lane. And, that's where the dialogue is. But in the meantime, we're doing a couple of events in the next month or two where members of Center City Residents Association are going to be sweeping the bike lanes with Philly Bike Action together, cleaning the lanes. So we're not screaming at each other. We're just, we both really want a great solution that's going to work for all communities.
Leo, thank you so much for joining me on CityCast Philly today.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
That's all for today here on CityCast Philly. If you learned something from this 2-part series on bike safety, tell a friend. Rate the show, leave us a review, and hit that subscribe button. Make sure you check out the show from Monday, February 24th about this issue. And sign up for our morning newsletter, Hey Philly, to learn more about what else Philly's talking about. We'll be back tomorrow morning with more news from around the city. Bye.